Today's reading is a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye, one of my favorite poets, titled Different Ways to Pray. There was the method of kneeling, a fine method if you lived in a country where stones were smooth. The women dreamed wistfully of bleached courtyards, hidden corners where knee fit rock. Their prayers were weathered rib bones, small calcium words uttered in sequence, as if this shedding of syllables could somehow fuse them to the sky. There were the men who had been shepherds so long they walked like sheep. Under the olive trees they raised their arms. Hear us, we have pain on earth. We have so much pain, there is no place to store it. But the olives bobbed peacefully in fragrant buckets of vinegar and thyme. At night, the men ate heartily flat bread and white cheese, and were happy in spite of the pain, because there was also happiness. Some prized the pilgrimage, wrapping themselves in new white linen to ride buses across miles of vacant sand. When they arrived at Mecca, they would circle the holy places on foot many times. They would kiss and bend the earth and return, their lean faces housing mystery. While for certain cousins and grandmothers, the pilgrimage occurred daily, lugging water from the spring or balancing baskets of grapes. These were the ones present at births, humming quietly to perspiring mothers. The ones stitching intricate needlework into children's dresses, forgetting how children easily soil their clothes. There were those who didn't care about praying, the young ones, the ones who had been to America. They told the old ones, "You are wasting your time." Time? The old ones prayed for the young ones. They prayed for Allah to mend their brains, for the twig, the round moon, to speak suddenly in a commanding tone. And occasionally, there would be one who did none of this. The old man Fauzi, for example, Fauzi the fool, who beat everyone at dominoes. He insisted he spoke with God as he spoke with goats, and was famous for his laugh.
Thank you, Ellen, for that wonderful reading. One of my favorite things about holidays is the stories that we tell about them, again and again. Not necessarily the stories that tell us why the holiday exists, but the stories that get passed down in families and in friend groups and in communities. The year your cousin found the afikoman first at the Passover Seder but wouldn't tell anyone. The time your sister's headscarf blew off in a high wind on the way into the mosque for the iftar and you both couldn't stop laughing about it. The time you tried to help at your friend's hosting an Easter meal and you set fire to one of the kitchen towels. Confession, that last one was me. That happened. But we tell these stories over and over again to preserve and to perpetuate our memories. We tell stories over and over again to remind ourselves of good times, or to tell cautionary tales about bad ones. We tell stories about holidays over and over because they are a part of how all humans make days holy, no matter the holiday or the faith, tradition, or secular practice on which it is based. Right now, we are in the midst of some of the holiest times of year for all three of what we sometimes call the Abrahamic faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. On April 2nd, we entered the holy month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. It honors the revelation of the first chapters of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad and is a time of fasting and reflection for the Islamic faithful. This coming Friday, April 15th, the Jewish feast of Passover will begin at sundown. The Passover feast commemorates the story of the Exodus, when the Jewish people were freed from slavery in Egypt through the guidance of God, in the person of Moses. And today, as we noted in our chalice lighting, is Palm Sunday, itself a holy day that falls 1 week before the holiest day on the Christian calendar, Easter. One way of thinking of the story of Ramadan is the gift of guidance. One way of thinking of the story of the history of Passover is the gift of liberation. And one way of thinking of the story of the history of Palm Sunday is the gift of welcome, complicated by later betrayal, which is all bound up in the story of the history of Easter. And yet the stories of these holidays, these holy days, is so much more than that. The month of Ramadan and the holy day celebrated at its completion, Eid al-Fitr, move around the Gregorian calendar that most of the world uses, since it is based on the lunar-based Islamic calendar. The dates for Passover and Palm Sunday are also based on lunar observations, but they are tied to the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, and so they don't move around the calendar quite as much. Whenever they occur, each of these holy days prompts those who observe them to give a particular kind of attention to their lives. Not only are special foods prepared, special prayers said, special actions taken, but the stories come out again. Even for many people who consider themselves non-religious, these holy days may prompt reactions from those raised in the faiths for whom they are sacred. I remember coming home from Palm Sunday Mass when I was a child and being secretly delighted when the family cats would play with the palms that we brought home, even though we were supposed to keep them out of reach. It's not a part of my current faith practice, but it is a fond memory that reminds me of my own history and how it is, and how I am, part of a much larger story. Our modern word holiday does indeed come from the words holy day, and the original meaning of holiday was religious festival or day of exemption from labor and recreation. Of course, the meaning of holiday has become more broad over time. Ramadan, Passover, and Palm Sunday are reminders to the faithful to tell themselves the story, the history, that is repeated every year. And those other stories, the personal ones, they come along as well. They inform and underline each other. What if we reverse engineered the more general and generally now more secular word holiday right back into holy day? What feels holy to us about these times of celebration? The origin of the word holy is from Old English, relating to that which is sacred, consecrated, godly. Before Old English and Old Norse and Old Finnish, all of which had similar words, the Proto-Indo-European root word is one suggesting the word whole, meaning unbroken or complete. What makes a holiday a holy day? What do we choose to give our attention to? When I think of that word whole, unbroken, as the base of holy, it takes me back to the very idea of attention. Hands up, who sometimes feels as this, it's hard to keep your attention focused on a single thing for long. Feel a little busy, feel a little distracted. So many things are competing for our attention on a daily basis. How on earth are we supposed to choose? What can we do when we do make a selection? When we give our attention to one specific thing, how are we able to do that fully without being interrupted by thoughts of all the other worthy and important things we could give our attention to? When a holiday, a holy day, arises, it calls us to draw our attention to a single place, thing, idea. The gift of the holy day is the gift of singular attention. Our decision tree becomes a single branch. The relief from decision fatigue can be palpable. All I need to do today is this. When we tell the stories, both the history of the day stories and the ones that go alongside, the unofficial stories that influence our perception and our awareness, that makes sense. That makes sense of our sense of the day of celebration complete. It's another easy decision to tell the story. This story, the one we love hearing every year, is the one that needs our attention right now. This and nothing else. The gift of the holy day, the gift of singular attention. The gift of wholeness from within ourselves, from within a world that sometimes feels fractured and noisy, ready to pull itself apart at a moment's notice. In today's reading, thank you again, Ellen, Naomi Shihab Nye, also one of my favorite poets, which is why you'll probably hear from her often, draws our attention to the different ways that prayer can show up for different people. Those who kneel, those who loudly voice grievances, those who go on pilgrimage, those who laugh. But my favorite that the poet lists is this kind of praying. While for certain cousins and grandmothers the pilgrimage occurred daily, lugging water from the spring or balancing the baskets of grapes, these were the ones present at births, humming quietly to perspiring mothers, the ones stitching intricate needlework into children's dresses, forgetting how easily children soil clothes. This is the prayer of daily work, of the small moments that comprise our lives, the prayer of fetching water, of harvesting that which we have planted, the prayer of witness, the prayer of intricate needlework. Has that cousin or grandmother truly forgotten that children easily stain clothes? Or have they made the decision that the child shall have something lovely, no matter its eventual fate? It's love, care, and attention through small acts of constancy and presence. It is singular attention. It is prayer. I happen to believe that it is a deep disservice to the complex and rich histories of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and any other wisdom traditions of the world to try to oversimplify those things which they have in common, regardless of the energy that may run deep within all wisdom traditions. The specific stories and histories have deep meaning for those of each faith. But the idea writ large, the overall concept of the holy day, is one we can each connect with in our own way and maybe tell our own stories about. When we choose to come together to worship here each week, we do not do it because we all share the exact same understanding of the root of our own wisdom traditions. We choose to spend this time giving our attention to a single thing. We choose to listen to many stories, including those unfamiliar to us, so that we may learn what wholeness and completion mean to each of us. We choose to worship, to draw our attention to that which is worthy, anew, week after week. The stories we tell make our holy days whole. And the more stories we tell, the more ways we see and hear and experience each other praying, the greater and more whole our own sense becomes. Each individual whole becomes a part of that wholeness, that holiness that is larger than us all. May we rest our attention, undivided, on that which is of great worth. May we honor that which is most worthy within each of us. May we share our stories. May we receive the stories of others. May we know our own worth and know the worth of all. So may it be.